and
two.
Not two, yes.
Especially in the men's 10,000 meter final, that I felt if Joshua Cheptegei had stuck to the initial tactics and brought the field closer to Stephen Kisa, who actually led for the first 16 laps, the story would be different. But you must still credit him for going out to get the silver medal in a very, very slow race, accompanied by Jacob Kiplimo, who got the bronze medal. And from the men's 10,000 meter final, you'd feel everyone in the Ugandan camp had gotten the momentum because there is a medal within camp. And those first two medals came on the very first day of athletics, and junior athletics ended on Sunday. So with that momentum that the two medals brought, you'd clearly feel there was something more in offing. And the fact that Joshua wasn't satisfied with the silver, you'd think he was still going to get onto the podium in the men's 5,000 meter final because he would still go out for the gold. And of course, after marking those 50 laps in a space of about 8 days, he eventually brought the gold last week on Friday. But even prior, Uganda had gotten another gold, the very first medal from a lady at the Olympics for Uganda, Peruth Chemtai. I said it a few hours ago that I don't think she knows what she did. She'll only know when she's a grandmother.
Or when she has arrived back in the country. The team arrives back in the country today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not today. With the fact that the celebrations will as well be scientific due to COVID-19, and some of these athletes are still got to just get back to training before they get back onto the Diamond League circuit or the World Continental Tour Gold. You think the celebrations will be muted because of the effects of the pandemic, but certainly Peruth Chemtai, that's just a historic moment. The manner in which she went through those last 3 laps of the water jump race, I think, was just phenomenal. And it's why Uganda has 2 golds, a silver and a bronze. You'd think, still, if the Olympics had come last year, in the way I was weighing out things, still Uganda would have returned with the same tally of medals, perhaps 3 golds and maybe a bronze or something like that.
Or a silver, but because Jacob was also very hungry this time around. We want to look at it from the, you've spoken about Peruth Chemtai, a first woman to actually gain a gold medal for Team Uganda ever since 1956. Then you also look at the fact that there have been more women on Team Uganda this time around. We had Nanziri, Kathleen, who went in for boxing. We had Kathleen Noble, who also went in for rowing participation. And they, of course, Nanziri's first turn was not good, but Kathleen going past the first round shows you that perhaps there is improvement in women participation in sports locally.
Certainly, and they are building blocks to the Olympics. As much as it is the grand stage of sport, it's very, very difficult to qualify an athlete. The Olympic standards are way, way higher in terms of qualification across the board, be it javelin, be it shot put, be it long jump. It's why you find Uganda's contingent is bigger at the Commonwealth Games, but smaller at the Olympics because of the qualifying standards. And with that, to see 13 women qualifying for the Olympics, because there were 13 women and 12 men. There would have been 13-13 had Julius Sechitoleko gotten the weightlifting slot in the 67 kilogram category. That's in the weightlifting. But once he fell out, the numbers dropped to 12 for the men and 13 for the women. That marking it the first time ever that Uganda would have more female competitors than male at the Olympics. And when I noticed that, I now began to scan through the entire ladies' side and, looking at Shida Lenny was going to become the first sprinter for Uganda at the Olympics in 13 years. The likes of Peruth Chemtai, Winnie Nanyondo, Halima Nakai. And, you'd actually single out and go like, okay, Kathleen Noble doesn't have Olympic experience, but with the way she's qualified to go to the global stage, you think she has something in offering. Eventually, I think she finished as the 2nd best African rower at the Olympics in that particular event, the women's single sculls. Then you get to boxing, Catherine Nanziri. There is a new opening in boxing for women's boxing. She's the very first female boxer for the country. You believe Nanziri will inspire so many other girls that come through from the sects of society that do boxing keenly. And then you talk about in the women's marathon that came up in the early hours of Saturday, Uganda was presenting for the first time more than a competitor in the women's marathon at the Olympics, because in the past 2 editions it had been just one per event in London 2012 and Rio 2016. You certainly think having more ladies in the side, that in a way pushed the team, not of course forgetting the likes of Chirabo Namutebi, the youngest on the team, 16 years old, in the pool.
Okay, all right. Now, at the end of the day, Olympics is done and dusted. But now it has brought something that we want to draw attention to, and that is the role of sports in developing this country socially, economically. What would you say is the role of sports?
I think, and I've said it before, that sport is a mirror of society. I think the country that topped the medal charts was USA, with 112 medals. I remember on the opening ceremony, July 27th in Tokyo, whereas countries were presenting 1 or 2 participants who were carrying either flag or something like that, Uganda, I think, had a sizable number of about 10, 12 because of the different flight routes and times that the team had to get there. Then America had almost a whole school walking in because of the numbers. And you'd find some are going to compete in trampoline, there's gymnastics, there's synchronized swimming, there's water polo, there's football, name it. And for Uganda, much as we're having our biggest contingent since Los Angeles 1984 games, it was just a reminder that sport is a mirror of society. Everything you'll see sport struggling with, the society will also struggle. When you see sport succeeding, it means there are also those small bits where the country will succeed. But if you give it a more holistic approach, 4 medals came through. If I'm to paint the picture for you, of the 4 medals, 3 of them, 2 of them were by Joshua Cheptegei, the other was by Perth Chemtai. Joshua Cheptegei and Perth Chemtai share a coach and manager. Okay? Jacob Kiplimo is the only one who trains with a different group, and because it's managed by Italians, and Cheptegei and Chemtai are managed by the Dutch. The amount of investment by the Dutch in these athletes is why they are winning medals. If they had chance, because Cheptegei had chance to actually change nationality to Qatar, he was offered $1 million by Qatar, and he chose not to change nationality. This is about 5 years ago. Had he changed nationality, where would we be today?
We would have lost a gold today, we would have lost a silver today. Yeah,
that's just small.
It would also give us an opportunity to groom more Joshua Cheptegeis.
The question would be, how do you be able to groom more Joshua Cheptegeis without seeing him? It means that his success story points out several things that we can leverage on and pick. And I've already said there's temperature when a medal comes in. Everyone is feeling good, it is sweet and all that. But today, if Stephen Kiprotich walked through downtown Kampala, I'll tell you only a handful would be able to recognize him. Why? Because his gold medal at the Olympic Games came 9 years ago. And how many have followed up on him, besides saying or asking when is he running, or seeing him struggle in those tough conditions in Sapporo or in the marathon on Sunday? After you win a medal, there are positives you've got to take. There are things you've got to learn from achieving success. For instance, Cheptegei's management, upon him finishing 8th in the 5,000 meter final and 6th in the 10,000 meter final at the Rio Olympics 5 years ago, decided to actually bring a coach from Netherlands specifically for him. Now, the ripple effect of that coach being in Kapchora with him 4 years down the road, because he came in 2017, are actually the results we are seeing with Cheptegei. Because from there, when the coach came in here, the results immensely changed. What happened? Joshua improved on his final kick once the bell goes those last 400 meters. Because in Rio, he was with Mo Farah. I think especially the 5,000 meters, he was with Mo Farah at the bell. But Mo Farah just went and lapped everyone, and he finished the race as the champion. What did the Dutch management do? They said, now we need to give you a coach they brought a coach in Kapchora. Because of Cheptegei, they went and improved and set up a training camp. The same training camp like one in Iten, Kenya, a very famous one, or even in the highland areas of Ethiopia. The same management goes, brings the coach here. 4 years down the road, Cheptegei has won medals with that gentleman, Adi Ruta. He missed, of course, the medal in Kololo at the World Cross Country Championships on March 26, 2017. But months later, he managed to recover and got the silver medal in the 10,000 meters behind Mo Farah, the London World Championships. In 2018, he got a Commonwealth double in Australia. 2019, he actually managed to win the World 10,000 meter title. And then he also actually won the World Cross Country title. 2020, during lockdown, he still was with Ruta, went and got those world records broken that were held by Kenenisa Bekele over the long distance on track. And then 2021, he still managed to deliver gold and a silver, the first man to go to the Olympics from Uganda and return with more than a medal at the same edition. I think that is just a pointer to show you how you handle success. As a country, there are things we've got to learn. After Chirabo Namutebi breaks the national record in the women's 50-meter freestyle in the pool, she's done one hit. Does that point out something that someone has got to learn? Because imagine if we go and set out a swimming complex somewhere, perhaps on the outskirts of Kampala. What's the ripple effect? You will find the engineers will make money because you need a construction company. Which
then contributes to the economy in the end.
That is one. Number two, you get plumbers because you're dealing with water. They'll have to come and work. You get electricians to come and work. Now, when the facility is fully fledged, you need managers. You need a floor manager, you need a stadium manager, you need a schedule manager. Besides,
you're employing Ugandans to the benefit of sports.
I'm just telling you about a swimming complex. Before you begin to talk about all these young participants that could get a chance to go and feature or get into the waters of the pool. But then more importantly, when there is infrastructure of this nature, you're going to find Uganda, we are said to be one of the youngest countries in the world. Which people do sport? It is the young people that do sport. If I stretch back and just give an example, in Germany, one of the most famous football clubs is called Bayern Munich, and it's located in a place called Bavaria. In Bavaria, one single club is employing close to 10,000 people, both directly and indirectly.
Yes.
Imagine if Arua Hill is employing 500 people in Arua town. How about Ondu Paraka? How about Mbarara City? How about Kacheka, if it is fully fledged and it can host events beyond football? You can talk of Nambole, so many other facilities. If they are put in place, there are so many things that the country can benefit. Where you can imagine imagine there are 25 stadiums like Nambole in this country. You will not be short of talent, but talent will be kept busy. You will answer questions of things like sprinters, because today modern day sprinter needs the track in the stadium.
A modern track, up to standard
like the one in Nambole.
2020, yes.
Exactly. So if there is only one available track, you're going to find middle distance runners like Halima Nakai or Winnie Nanyondo being pushed to go to Europe.
The things you speak of are things that I actually saw in school growing up. There was investment into sports and sports-related facilitation and equipment. And these are disciplines that are actually being showcased in events like Olympics. Now that draws me back to ask myself a question of, we have sports, but we seem to be limiting sports to football. We seem to be limiting investment to basketball, if we have gone the stretch so bad. The rest of the sports disciplines that we have in this country, how many federations do we have?
Well, they are growing close to 60 or more.
Exactly.
Because there are those that are not even registered. There is a new sport called Kabaddi. You're going to talk about federations like rowing.
Yes.
Before the Olympics, no one was discussing rowing. Now,
What I'm trying to paint the picture is that we do have the sports disciplines. Underground, they actually do exist. And individuals have taken on the initiative to actually push for these disciplines and invite participation from communities to be able to help communities grow, keep children in school for whatever other reason. But at the end of the day, it's a sport that, if heavily invested in, would actually have a ripple effect on this economy. You have brought into the aspect of management, the Dutch management on Joshua Cheptegei and his continued intentional growth of success. Now let's replace that individual management or group management to government management. And how government management, if it actually followed the same line and train of thought, where would Uganda be in terms of sports and development?
I think Uganda would be a world beater. If the commentator the day Joshua Cheptegei was getting his gold medal, Rob Walker, had not been here, perhaps he wouldn't have said some of the things he said. But more importantly, he got that opportune moment because Joshua managed to win the gold. When Joshua gets onto the podium and celebrates like a silverback, it answers some things which are quite few. But that medal ceremony will actually be played for many years to come. Even when Cheptegei is no longer alive, that medal ceremony will still be played somewhere in the next generations. And everyone will be asking why he did that. And the answer will be, one, is because he's doing it like a silverback in Bwindi. That is just something small. What government can do is simple. And they're the same things we've echoed and reflected. For instance, number one, invest in infrastructure. There's nothing you lose. The same way we'll construct... But
what does it take to invest in infrastructure?
What it takes to invest in infrastructure is simple.
Because
I think these are eye-openers.
We seem to have a challenge drawing the line between the politics of developing sports and the actuality of actually supporting development.
Unfortunately, you're not going to run away from it.
That's true.
You're not going to run away from it. There are comparative advantages that Joshua has got to win the 10,000 meter gold. And those comparative advantages, you must make most of them, because every country, when a country knows it is strong in something, if Japan knows they are strong in judo, they will give it their all and they will dominate judo. If USA knows that, you know, we have so many coastline sports, so we are capable of producing sprinters, the USA will produce sprinters.
Jamaica did that. Before getting into Tokyo Olympics, they actually renovated every facility that was facilitating all their Olympians to just be prepared.
And you know what it means? The result? In 5 years from today, or 3 years from today, we'll perhaps find a replacement for Usain Bolt for Jamaica, because they've struggled in the sprints here. Now, Joshua Cheptegei is a single individual from Kapchora. I'll tell you, there are many more Joshua Cheptegeis in Kapchora, but they may not get the chance to get the Dutch management. Now, you need something more holistic and something more welcoming. That drives me to the point of the Teriet High Altitude Center. It was promised after Moses Kipsiro won the double at the Commonwealth Games. Today, as we speak, 11 years later, it is yet to hit full completion for full use. If it hits full completion for full use, trust me, you'll find another Kiplimo, you'll find another Chemtai.
I like the fact that if it does so, and that if is going to still be a long time.
Yes.
We're still talking years of
now
that becoming a reality.
Now that's why I now leave and come to the single small managements that handle Cheptegei and Nakai. One that is able to reach out to a primary school in a place called Chemwania, where that picture comes from, in Kwen district, and the Dutch management single-handedly works with the school to flatten the track because they want to find a facility close by where these athletes can try and get speed.
Wouldn't you say that that ends up being exploitation and exportation? Because if you have just given us an example of Joshua being offered $1 million to change his nationality for the Olympics, then how much more exploitation are we going to be having from these managements?
It's not exploitation from these managements. And I will tell you, without them, we would not be getting medals.
True.
Without them, we don't be getting medals. But what they do is they treat sport as a business. And that is a key area that is not done here in Uganda.
So
by
if
building
government treated sports as
like a business,
they would
be having a very different discussion
the way they're
today.
treating COVID-19 as a
Exactly. Because not far from here is a big mall owned by a rich man in this city. If he knew the power of sport, he would invest in a swimming complex or an indoor basketball arena, just like the one in Kigali that's going to host AfroBasket. So just imagine, Rwanda a few months ago was hosting the first edition of BAL, the Basketball Africa League, in partnership with NBA. Just because they have a facility like the Oracle Arena or any other, or the Staples Center or any other facility.
They had the ability to bid
yes,
to be able to have hosting
because they
rights.
have infrastructure.
Okay.
Now the power of infrastructure comes in here. After Rwanda manages to put up that facility with the help of the government, they are now able to host the AfroBasket. Just a few months ago, they were able to host the BAL I was talking about. Now just imagine how much money does each of those people spend
to the country
just within a 1 week's tournament or even a fortnight. How much money
Flights,
do they spend?
Accommodation, meals, tourism, a lot.
Just because there is that facility. When that facility is there, it's just one in a small country like Rwanda.
But it's put Rwanda on the African continent
Exactly.
map.
Because all the words that will be said around that tournament are actually the logos go with Visit Rwanda. The same way they on the crest for Arsenal. That is the power of what Kigali Arena can do. I don't know, there are even Ugandans, because Uganda is still going to take part in the AfroBasket. Imagine with all the money they've wanted to train, the Silverbacks, because it's been the talk even on the floor of Parliament. Imagine if the arena was somewhere in Chira, and they don't need to travel to Kigali, so tickets are cut off. More money is brought, the economy is working, you have Uganda Airlines busy, because you perhaps have officials coming from the region. You have foodstuffs moving, you have hotels booked, you have all these other things going up. I remember when the pandemic hit here, the Hotels Association in Uganda lost 90% of their revenue because there were conferences that were cancelled. Imagine if it is for sport. 4 years ago, Uganda hosted here the World Cross Country. All hotels close by here, UBC, got filled up because about 500 athletes were going to take part in a cross-country event. Just imagine what South Africa got after they hosted the 2010 World Cup. The power of the rand went up. Why? The whole world is watching. Several fans are flying in. Players are coming in. There are people who have never seen Lionel Messi. So they say, let's go because Messi's Argentina is in our group. And there are very many things that you pick when sport is taken as a business. Just imagine the impact of what Japan is getting now. They've built basketball arenas. They have a national stadium. They've had so many things improved to host 339 different events. That's in cycling, swimming, rowing, name it. You cannot talk about what China did. When China won the rights to host the 2008 Beijing Games, what they did is they went and got 9-year-olds and prepared them for the Olympics. When the Olympics came about 10, 11 years later, these kids were 19. China was sweeping medals across swimming, name it. Why? It was taken as a business. To host the Olympics, it's not fun. You must be backed up by government. The same things I think the FIFA president Moses Magoga has said here, that if Uganda is to host, say, the Beach Soccer Africa Cup of Nations, what's the ripple effect that you get? Because you're going to have CAF officials come in here. They will sleep in executive rooms in hotels. You're going to have players come in here. You're going to have teams come in here. When teams come in, a team like Ghana or Senegal, they'll say, no, we want the best hotel.
And you're looking at about 40 people in just one team.
So you have 40 people filling up rooms for a week. Sometimes these teams play long in tournaments, so they stay for the entire tournament. Sometimes they will even want to visit.
But the challenge of even hosting them is that infrastructure-wise,
it's not there. Exactly.
We don't have the practice grounds that they would use before they use the official grounds for the games.
Yes. So where is the eye-opener?
So the chain and commerce of actually
it's absolutely huge.
Sports.
You see that images of Uganda Cranes match at Nambole. Now, on that day, I can tell you the number of people who make money. Beginning with me, a journalist, because I'm going to do a story. You're going to have people driving, transport. You can count the number of border-borders that take people to Nambole on a match day. The fuel is going to move. You're going to count the nyama choma just right outside the stadium, or the Rolex, or a Cranes jersey, or a painting on the cheek of Cranes colors, or a vuvuzela being sold, then you count the taxis that are going to move people. Move from there, talk about the players themselves. They have stipends. The hotels are making money for a host team, for a visiting team that has come in. The referees as well are being hosted. Now, you're going to talk about a broadcaster. That's because they're going to telecast the game. The money is going to come to UBC because they're going to say the equipment is with UBC just because of 90 minutes of football. You get? And with all that coming within one football match just because the Cranes are playing, just now imagine the Cranes is hosting, say, Sekafa. And there is, say, a stadium Nambole is available, there is Njeru available, they have taken maybe another group match to Peche Stadium in Arua. You know, several things of that kind. The ripple effect is huge, I'll tell you. Even if it is a small cricket tournament in Lugogo, there is a ripple effect on the economy in terms of commerce, people's welfare, people are kept busy. You know, the Olympics normally have close to 10,000 volunteers. They're given stipends. So someone goes home happy, beyond a gold medalist. So Cheptegei's gold awakens so many things. You know, I've had the chance...
Improves the livelihood
exactly.
of so many people in Japan.
I've had the chance to fly to several countries. And I'll give you an example. As you land in Cairo, there's one face you'll see when you leave the airport. Mo Salah. He's advertising a bank, he's advertising a shoe, a t-shirt, a vest, a meal, a beverage, and so many other things.
All the work that Joshua Cheptegei and the medals he has earned in just 2 years, we don't have that being converted into economy and
certainly
cash
not.
And power to actually market the country.
Certainly not, and it's why you saw there was a clash actually on brands jumping onto success and doing graphical material that gets onto Facebook and Twitter when they've not done anything when these athletes are achieving success. So and that has brought a clash already on digital media. So
speaking of which, we get to have these people have their achievements at the end of the day, but they start from somewhere. Peruth Chemtai's story is the one that touches me. 2013, she joined Struck as a fan, and then she ended up sprinting, and that is how her talent is identified, and many years down the road she's now a gold medalist at the Olympics. So much has been the fate of most athletes, most sportsmen and women that we pride over as a country today, that it's been accidental, or it's been that someone actually just got them by the hand and forced them to realize that they had a gift and a talent in this ability, which makes us look at the stakeholders that we have in actually bringing development to sports. You have the community setting or the family setting. You do have the school setting that has made sports a co-curricular activity, not giving it as much emphasis as it should be. And more so now that schools are also business oriented, they no longer have room for adding sports to their curriculum, which then also leaves a gap there. And then the accidental talents are identified by management, and then management cannot take up all of them. So back to the country that has a structure of grassroots to where we have national level. We have the parents, you have the education system, you have the federations, and then you have government. Each of these are stakeholders. From your opinion, how can each of these actually contribute to sports development?
Well, it must be holistic. For starters, whereas there are grassroots and there are no structures at the top, a lot of talent will fall off. Between you and me, you know someone who was very good in football, but they are now engineers. Someone who was very good at volleyball, she used perhaps do well in the inter-house competitions in school. Perhaps now they've chosen and moved on to several other things because the retention system, that is the infrastructure from school to where next do you go, can the system support you to do both class and sport? Those are some of the questions that we've got to answer in changing times, because today classes are on Zoom, you know. So a parent who's a stakeholder, how much room have you given your kid to go out of just the fence you've got at home? Because those are things that unlock mindsets. The mindset towards sport must change. if there is any man who is trying to make it change, it's Joshua Cheptegei, because each and every year for the last 4 years, he's in someone's face with a medal. That should be an awakener. We have, if you put it all together, when you talk about parents, we have parents who are willing to spend as much money to see their sons or daughters swim at different competitions. But you know, that's really a heavy load on a parent, however much they want them to succeed. But if there is a structure, and the structure involves infrastructure, it involves the technical elements like good coaching, certified coaching where coaches know what they are doing, where coaches are the global standard or continental standard and are able to meet some of the marks that athletes from other places or other regions are able to meet in different disciplines. Besides that, you'd think with the schools' competitions, they must still remain strong. Unfortunately, for the last 2 years,
that seems to be dying out.
That has died out because of the pandemic.
Okay, there's the pandemic, yeah.
All sports competitions at school level have been called off, be it the secondary school football championship, be it the East Africa Games that produce so many netballers. It's why the netball team is strong. Why? Because of the schools' competitions. These athletes are very competitive right from secondary school, and eventually there is an under-18 team, and then there's the She Cranes. Now, 2 World Cups in a row, 2015 and 2019, and it's not strange. Why? Because there's a structure, and then there's a comparative advantage because netball is in Commonwealth nations like Uganda, so you'd find they'll still be at the World Cup. But if netball is dissipated across the world, then Uganda will need more structures to remain strong in netball.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I was saying, that if you've got a comparative advantage, for instance, the Sebei region and the western part of Kenya, you know, that is a whole single group, the Kalenjins. They have a comparative advantage because their lungs are wider, they're in high altitude areas, so they'll compete favorably over the long distance.
Yes,
exactly.
It's used and designed to actually
compete.
Yeah.
But if you move to a coastal region, say South Africa, if you move to a coastal area like Ghana, or that is on the Atlantic and South Africa, or even US and Jamaica, you find that the structures of these individuals gives them the comparative advantage in shorter distances, that is the sprints. Actually, even Uganda here, the best sprinters have come from the central region because of the stature. The best boxers come from the central region because of the stature. And if we get to know all these things and know that, yes, we have comparative advantages here. I'll give you an example. At these Olympics, all the 3 boxers are from the central region.
Yes.
Enanzidi, Ekavuma, Iwoji. The long distance runners are from a particular area. The Cheptegeis, Chemtais and company. That should be something, and we go like, okay, if we finish 38, we're actually capable of filling all quota slots to the Olympics, both men and women. If we come and set up a boxing hub and get coaches certified in boxing.
Darren, when you say if we, now who's the we that you're referring to in your
We
statement?
as a country, you talked about parents, you talked about schools, you talked about federations. These are people who lead in sport.
Yeah.
You've talked about the government that will put a hand in sport through the National Council of Sports. If we, all of us, because you could wake up and you're an investor, but today most investors, because they know that the money to make is by having an arcade in downtown, now Nachivubo is swallowed up by arcades. But imagine if Nachivubo had stayed to a better standard, and perhaps it's actually improved. We hope actually that what is on paper comes to fruition about Nachivubo. But imagine if one of the investors today was an arcade or a big mall, chooses to instead go and set up a boxing hub somewhere in Masaka. Do you just know what would change about boxing? By just having a boxing hub and a small indoor arena, even if it's a 2,000-seater, just to have that in place with the help of government, you would actually have more boxing tournaments. You'd not be struggling to have one end of a ring working, because if one end of a ring is not okay, you cannot have boxers get onto that ring.
And it would also attract you to the bigger
exactly.
community of boxing.
You'd have more boxing tournaments.
Tournaments
yeah.
across
You'd have
the continent and the world.
You'd have coaches busy, we've talked about here ripple effects of sports discipline. We've seen contingents of people leave Kampala to go for just a rally event in Fort Portal, and all hotels get filled up. And that's a local event. How about if it's continental, global? Yeah.
Okay. All right. You have also talked about the fact that, yes, we do have that expectation from government. Now, moving forward, the government has seen that sports can actually build this country and put it on a world map. Building this country, the other way sports is building this country is through tourism.
Yeah.
Joshua Cheptegei is now an ambassador with the tourism board, which is a bonus for us as a country. How can we use sports to promote tourism?
Well, it's just inevitable because without television today, a bigger part of sport loses. You've already seen what's happening with Barcelona. The impact of the pandemic. Most of these football clubs are now relying on television revenue in that commercial aspect. And by a Ugandan donning a bib, just a Ugandan bib, someone wonders, which country is that? By the national, the national anthem has only played thrice. Actually 4 times only at the Olympics. September 2nd, 1972, August 12th, 2012, last week, August 4th, and then 2 days later, August 6th. When the national anthem plays, because all the people watching athletics are used to the Kenyan anthem, Jamaican anthem, Italian anthem, American anthems, Great Britain, and then a Ugandan anthem is playing. So someone asks, where is Uganda found? Where is Uganda located? Mind you, not long ago, the government paid millions of dollars, some huge dollars, to have Uganda advertised on CNN. I don't think the government now needs to spend that money. You get? If you just get a part of the money they spent, Teriet can be complete within a very short period of time. And by Cheptegei winning, it's a constant reminder of finishing Teriet. We now no longer need to write stories because we just keep reminding them, hey, you know what, you people, we must finish Teriet. The more they win, the more you must think of finishing Teriet. Tourism goes beyond, that thing that Cheptegei did, like a silverback. Someone sits down and is like, why did he do that? So by the time they check on Twitter, they're realizing it's because of the mountain gorillas, and Uganda has a high population of them. So you'll have someone fly in here because they saw Cheptegei.
They can actually see the good
yes.
of themselves.
And tourism will not stop here because they've seen him.
No.
Like I've told you,
word of mouth.
the footage at the medal ceremony
alone
will be used at the next edition of the Olympics, Brisbane 2032, until perhaps the 2070-something Olympics.
Okay.
Even when Cheptegei is an old man, that footage will keep playing because of what he did. The power of tourism is huge. There is tourism in that sense, attracting you to come and see a mountain gorilla, but there's also sports tourism. When teams travel to Kigali here for the AfroBasket, after the tournament, what do teams normally do? They will say, can we move around?
Yes.
Can we move around? Can we move to Kichukiro? Can we move to see all this history of the genocide and all these other things? By the time the teams step out, they will be spending on fuel, they will want to eat, they will take selfies, there is the power of Instagram and all these other things. We've discussed that over and over again. There is a power of sports tourism. Imagine if we had a very, very strong rowing competition. Just imagine, and teams come in here for a rowing competition to compete from other countries, how much fish would be sold? Or how many more people would want to go to Kalangala?
Yes, fresh fish.
Yeah.
Actually, even start from doing the activity itself, then deep frying, and so many other things would actually develop.
I can see one now to go and eat.
Okay. Now, finally, also sports as a tool of school retention. Currently, kids are not in school. We are waiting for reopening, which is still uncertain for us as a country. But we have seen so many success stories that have come out of the education system through the power of sports, or through the engagement of sports. They were actually able to become who they are today, and we celebrate them today. So let's talk about using sports as a tool for school retention. with so many challenges that we've had coming through the pandemic, early childhood marriages, pregnancies, child labor, children have no other alternative, or community is not giving them another alternative, and yet sports is right there. Back in the day, there used to be Kasawe, every boy to the pit, come back in the evening, that's very fine. Every girl to the pit, play netball, kwepena, anything like that. But we don't seem to be having those spaces right now. So how can we use sports to actually be able to retain children in education system?
One of the reasons why I enjoyed secondary school was because I had more liberty to do sport than at home. I
agree, me too. Every weekend would be, I would look forward to being...
Personally, not every weekend, but every day I would play football. We had a small handball pitch. So for senior ones and senior twos at Deje Secondary School, they would use it, the small handball pitch would be used by the senior ones and twos, so we'd call it Highbury because it was small. So the bigger field was nicknamed Old Trafford.
Wow.
So every evening we'd go to play football. And I actually realized many years later that I benefited a lot because sport taught me several things, including interpersonal relationships. You're interacting with someone, you're quarreling, you're saying the ball went out.
With pressure,
you're dealing with pressure.
Out of a game,
exactly. There's a lot of anticipation. Exactly. So all those things picked from those small memories of mine just remind me of how much inclusion sport can do. Sport gives leverage to so many people today than education would have, because we are right now in a generation that is staffed with so many educated people, so many degrees, so many masters, and the system is clogged with so many success stories in education. Unfortunately, after education, you actually need the aspects of life, which sport will always deliver at any single day. Because when you go for volleyball, you're facing different opponents, but you know there is that aspect of humanity after the game you will embrace. It is what education will not give you. That's why they must move together concurrently. Yes, you need education in the world of today, but as well education now has got limits because everyone is educated. Everyone has education today. So what extra thing do you have?
But not everyone has character, no discipline.
Exactly.
Two things you can pick out of participating in sports.
Now, in countries where someone becomes an Olympian, they move to different levels in terms of earning, stipends. They may never lack jobs. They will be saluted in a way because they've taken part in sport. If I bring it back here, you've talked about early child marriages and all these other things. Until today, there are people who have gone to school just because of sport. You can mention the bursaries. There are so many netballers who go through school in different schools today, especially at secondary school level, because of sport. The key thing is the mental fortitude. Are you able to tell someone that once you do class, you must also do sport? But if you do sport and you still win, don't forget class. You know, that's why you've got to balance it. And it's where most people either fall off and fall to education. The mother says, I don't get what you're doing. Ever since you started swimming, your results have gone bad because some of those things are not addressed. Or but
it's also an indicator that sports is perhaps impacting much more on the student or child than the way the education system is structured.
Yes, unfortunately.
It's something to look into.
Yes, unfortunately, and I'll be honest with you, education will give you all these things. Yes, you'll be educated, but there is the aspect of being learned.
Yes.
That also comes with sport.
Agreed.
That education may not offer in sufficient volumes. And I'll tell you, that is something that sport will give you on any day. But luckily, we are moving into areas and we're seeing a culture change as we wind up. We're seeing a culture change where parents are beginning to drift away from these normal disciplines like football. We're seeing underage swimming competitions filled with so many kids, and parents go and sit there the whole day to watch them swim. We are seeing a new culture, actually because of the pandemic. You can count the number of bicycles that have been bought. You can look at WhatsApp statuses to see how many people are riding bikes as families.
Indoor stadium games also have actually been attracted a lot.
Exactly. If you do chess and introduce a young child to chess early, be sure they're going to be interested in mathematics, because you've got to calculate moves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Darren. This conversation could take another hour, but our time is fast spent. At the end of the day, sports is actually a discipline, but also if only government can change the lenses that they have and look at it as a business, that way they will be more willing to make investments. So, Honorable Hamson Oboa, State Minister for Sports, this is our plea to you that as every stakeholder, let's have a sit down. These men and women have shown us what they can do at Olympics. How much more can any other Ugandan have their potential to do just that? In turn, the economy is built socially, economically, and infrastructure-wise. Good Morning Uganda does come to an end. Good Morning Uganda Extra will come in at exactly 9 o'clock with Jagenda Semakola to take you for yet another hour. After that, well, UBC will be having more programming for you, but stay tuned to the station that is inspiring Uganda. My name is Priscilla Nalwoga. Have yourselves a wonderful